Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, and this is the Daily AI Show live. And coming to you today, it's Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. And we are here to talk about Claude. And really, if you saw my thumbnail there, it's has Claude finally arrived with a question mark? And here's the thing. In my mind, Claude arrived last year. I think we would maybe I don't know, speak for all of you guys. You guys can tell me what you think, but Claude arrived a long time ago. Anthropic arrived a long time ago. But if we just go back to that Reuters report, if we just look at some of the data that Carl has shared with us over time and stuff like that, we know that outside of our fun bubble, our fun AI bubble, lots of people have no clue who Claude is. In fact, I was just at a meeting last week where I said the word Anthropic, and it could have been hubbubaloo. There was no recollection, right? And that's fine. That's fine. So Claude, Anthropic, nothing. And I was just talking to a client. And then when I was over in Austin, same thing. Zero. No, unless they're into AI, it wasn't even anything there. So my reason for saying, like, has Claude arrived and why we want to have the show, and Beth, you were the one that was like, hey, we should definitely do a show about this. Not only because of what they recently announced and kind of blew everybody away. It was only several months ago that they said, hey, we're going to split our models and we're going to have Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. And Opus is our premier model, and it's going to be akin to, Gemini 1.5 Pro and Ultra and all these other things, right? And then it seems like we blinked our eyes and they're like, but we also just made Sonnet, our free model, crazy fast, crazy cheap, and now it's better than Opus. And we'll come out with a new Haiku and Opus in the fall. But here's 3.5. And everybody was like, wait, what? And then it seemed like we blinked and they said, also, here's this really cool thing called artifacts that nobody else has. And then we're also doing this thing with projects. And so we were like, okay, hold on. Let's do a show about it and talk about what Claude and maybe what Anthropic is doing here and maybe what we think they're about to do, because I think they're not trying to hide anything. It's in their notes when they write their blogs about their press releases. It's there saying this is what we intend to do. We're going to make memory better. We're going to start connecting directly to other tools specifically, right? So we can kind of see where they want to go with this. They want to be the project manager, your AI project manager that a team of people opens up, uses, collaborates with, shares. It's their AI agent and buddy, That's the way I kind of see it. So there's a lot to talk about here, both from the model side and what they've done on that side and how they've sort of blown away people with the frontier models and the benchmarks and stuff like that. But also, I would love to talk a lot about the artifact side of things, because I think that is pretty amazing. So I don't know. I want to kick it over to you, Beth, because I know you sort of worked on the artifact side as well. And what we wanted to do is give a little bit of time before we did the show so we could talk about some of the amazing use cases we've personally seen, or maybe some stuff we've also worked on as well.
Right. So when it came out, the place where I get a lot of my AI news is X, because that's actually where the conversation is happening live as things are going. Also, the AI Exchange, right? That's another place where everybody goes to, like, okay, did you see this? What are you doing with it?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it seemed like people were just immediately building games, right? Can you build me a Pong game? Can you build me a snake game? I built a memory card game, like Concentration, if you remember that. But over the next couple of days, and now it's been about a week, maybe a week and a half, people started to do more interesting interactive things. So it can build live interactive business graphics, right? So it's like building the graph in Excel or Sheets. You can click on it. It's going to show you what that is. You can do that with code, right? It can build, Ali Miller said you can take an example from like your kid's textbook and load that in as an image and say, okay, so let's create an interactive conversational experience for my kid about this. They're asking questions about it. There are just so many fascinating examples that people have. How do you make decisions, right? Like, what are your decision factors? one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because I wanted to do it before it's like massive fire hose, right?
Right.
Like, okay, then we can do like our top use cases now.
Yeah.
Or it's insane. And Andy does a lot with UI and how users are interfacing and user experience. And it's the same kind of thing. You can just like draw a picture of what you want and it codes it.
Yeah, let me comment on Claude first generally, but then specifically about artifacts and its usefulness as a coding preview. You can write, all the large language models can write code. And to a large degree, I've observed over the last year and a half that the competence in code generation is really what's making a big difference in the marketplace out there. Okay, yeah, they're drafting emails and they're writing blog posts and everything else. But what's really happening, that's really transforming the technology world, is the coding capabilities of these LLMs. Now, what Claude's done is basically created a mini console over there on the right, where there's two different buttons. You can click code or preview. Now that preview is really what we're talking about here, because what it does is it runs the code and generates whatever the output of that code is there. And that's what Beth was saying, when people are making games or doing visualizations. And I've used it that way just to try it out. But I wanted to just provide a little bit of background about Claude 3.5. So Anthropic, of course, without nearly the brand awareness, as to your point, Brian, or with the user base that OpenAI has maintained a position at near the top of the LMSys leaderboard that evaluates by various benchmarks how this model compares to all the others. Now, when 3.5 Sonnet came out, it immediately jumped up to just barely behind ChatGPT 4o, which had recently been released and topped the leaderboard. So Anthropic's tools are really at parity with GPT, OpenAI's GPT series. And that's a really major accomplishment. And hopefully it's arrived now. And now that people see this new UI tool, which is really, really useful for people doing code generation, or I can provide an example here of what I did with it, which will show you that, oh, now you can have a dialogue with the LLM that results in a diagram that might be useful for a presentation or that sort of thing. And it's generating code behind the scenes that can then be used and implanted into some other application if that's your direction. So
I was a little behind you here, Andy. I apologize. I was trying to get the graphic up while you were talking about it, and then you start talking about the artifacts. But really quick, you were just talking about how well 3.5 was, so I wanted to throw up the graphic. This is, by the way, from Anthropic.com. They're sharing this. But do you want to kind of just go over what we're seeing on the screen here?
Yeah, if I can see it.
I can make it bigger. There you go. Is that better?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So notice on the left, the rows of this comparison across multiple models, including Gemini 1.5 Pro, a very competent model. It leads off with graduate level reasoning, a benchmark that that determines how well it can basically pursue an objective by thinking through and developing a series of steps. And Claude 3.5 beats substantially Claude 3 Opus, their own top advanced model, and GPT-4o, 59.4% on that test as compared to 53.6% for GPT-4o. On undergraduate level of knowledge, that's the content that it's accumulated into its representational array in the LLM, that is at 88.7, and GPT-4o matches that with the 0 shot. So actually GPT-4o, this is a little bit of Anthropic trying to put themselves at the top of that particular comparison. But with 5 examples, Claude 3.5 Sonnet can match what GPT-4o can do with no examples in respective outputting knowledge from its store, in effect. And so on through all of this. For coding, notice that it's at the very top, 92% zero shot, 90.2 is what GPT-4o does. So now Claude 3.5 Sonnet is the undisputed leader in code generation.
Mm-hmm. And that brings you, sorry, because I know we want to sort of backwards to go forwards, but that brings us over to what we're talking about with artifacts. So I can actually bring up this and at the stage. There we go. So this is what we're sort of looking at with artifacts. And Andy, you mentioned this earlier, where on the left side, I have pretty much what we would consider to be just a very natural Claude back and forth prompting. Nothing really different there. The only difference is that when it comes to generating some sort of code, it now opens up this side window, and then you get the preview, and you will also see, originally you will see the code running. So the code is, this will be running on the side concurrently with how you're talking to Claude, but then you also get this very handy preview mode. So in this particular example, of which there's many for us to talk about, like Beth said, what I did was I just took one show that we did, model orchestration. We did that show last week. And what I said is I just want to get a fun, interactive, vibrant infographic. And so we got a first version. In fact, I think you can actually go back through the original versions. So this is the first version of it that it came up with. And so if we go here, we can see that it was really, really basic with, like, if I click on multiple AI models, it says coordinate various AI models. I'm like, okay. I mean, it definitely did pull in information. It actually made a pretty cool, basic infographic with some basic icons on it. Not mad at it at all. Then I gave it some, another input. I said, this needs to have a lot more detailed information about the show from the show transcript. Also, do your own research and add to this topic, because I wanted it to expand on what we talked about on the show. And then we got to something that looked like this. And actually, if we click on it, now we get these fun, after I click on model orchestration, we get some drop downs now where we have definition, key benefits, tools. And if I click on key benefits, it expands that area. And we have, it says enables the use of multiple models in parallel, reduces latency, so on and so forth. And then before, I sort of ran out of tokens here because I was using just the free side of this, and you quickly run out of the ability to produce more. All I really said is like, hey, can you put this in our show colors? Funny enough, instead of using the logo, it recreated the logo to the best of its ability, which is an odd thing to do, but that's what it did. And I'm sure you can kind of see what I was going to say down on the left. But I ran out of tokens. I couldn't run it. But what we have here now is, if we go to like data integration, well, that's a poor example. Let me go to workflow management. What I said was, I want to get not only good information underneath each of the drop downs on the info, but I also want to start bringing in quotes from the co-host, us, on what we talked about on it. Now, this was 3 prompts to get to this point. And it's already interactive. It's already pulling in the quotes. I didn't have to tell it to give me a nice little bubble. It did that for me. I didn't have to say, make it pretty with drop downs. It did that for me. And with probably 10 more prompts, I could have this and be something that was basically a deployed example of somebody who wanted to learn more. Let's say you wanted to do a deep dive on just our show about model orchestration, and we could create a really fun infographic for it. Now, to take this an even step further, let's say that we want to make this, maybe we will. Let's say we want to make this as part of our newsletter, where for every show that we did over the previous week, we also want to have a fun, interactive infographic. That's where projects really, I think, comes into play. And I'll just come off the screen here, because now as a team, Beth, myself, Andy, Jimmy, Carl, Aaron, and Robert, like all 7 of us, right? We're a team. And so now we're sharing documents. And what I would probably be doing is saying, okay, Claude, this is how we went about creating this infographic. And now this is the standard. Here's the code that we use to create an infographic that we're really happy with. Now I just want to play with variables. What's the variable? The transcript. So now we go and say, Andy, you just did that whole, well received, by the way. It's one of our recently better episodes on cons and what that means and why that's important and stuff. And so there's a great topic that people are like, I never heard of that in my life, but now I want to know more after listening to you guys. Oh, okay. Well, here's an infographic that helps you just do a quick deep dive into it. Sure, you can watch the show. Sure, you can read about it. but here's some of the comments that Andy made about it. Here's what Beth had to say about it. We can even envision maybe a future iteration of this where when you click on what did Andy say, it's actually a clip of you, Andy, saying blah, 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 right? Now, maybe Claude can't get us that far, but this is just an example of what you can do between Artifacts 3.5 and projects. This is everything I just said is doable today. We absolutely could if we want to put the time and effort.
What a great example, Brian. And what you get from your demonstration here is that you can use Claude 3.5 to create a web page, in effect, an interactive web page. That code that's underlying that can be implanted on our website. So you could take what you just produced and you can make that a link to a separate page on our website. So if you go to that show page, orchestration, or to the thumbnail that's showing on the screen. By the way, thedailyAIshow.com. You can go there now and you can find that orchestration link. And then what we could do is put that interactive kind of navigation thing right there as a separate page. So you click on the link and that comes up. And in the development model that you're illustrating here, you can do an interactive session with Claude 3.5 to arrive at what you want, then copy the code and put it on your website.
Yep.
Yeah.
We could even go farther, right, Andy? We could make it a 3D if we wanted to. Claude could help us program something that has more of a 3D. People, by the way, have like recreated Doom in 3 prompts. A basic version of Doom in 3 prompts in Claude. That's how cool it is, right? So 3D modeling and stuff. But like, let's say that we wanted our own spatial like vector analysis of all the topics we've done. We've now done 230, like 5 shows, almost something like that, live shows. And you could have a 3D model that says like, hey, cons, they're closer over here to like future models and languages and LangChain. They're sort of clumped together. You want to learn more about that. And then the model moves. So the person goes to our website, they pick a topic and they're like, well, I want to learn about this cluster. And then they would just pick on a topic and then it would bring them to something that maybe it's not an infographic. Maybe it's done differently.
No, it's a knowledge graph.
Basically. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the AI depicting the AI knowledge graph filtered down to the information that we're sharing on our show. The subjects of it.
And it's just a very interactive way of deep diving into the show topics. Beth, I can already tell you want to build this.
Oh, it's so cool. Yes. I have no poker face, but this is very exciting. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for. More work for us.
So now I can share my screen and I want to show you, that I didn't have exactly the same level of completion that you got, Brian, in my efforts. But what you're seeing here is the final best result of an attempt to take a CSV file with a list of various topics in the context of an LLM prompting course and lay it out as, the 5 different sections of the course and then detail below it in an infographic that might be used to, advertise that or as a navigation aid once it was made interactive. But what I wanted to point out here is how long it took me to get to this, because if I scroll up here, this is the dialogue that went on and on and on to try to get something simple like, hey, give me a sort of a mind map was my first request. Give me a mind map of this CSV file that I uploaded. So it says, okay, yes, I'm going to do it. Course structure mind map. It gave me an error, syntax error. So I said, hey, well, that's not going to work. That was a syntax error. Can you fix it? Okay. Try it again. Can you it gave me a very squashed little thing that didn't fit in the window. And I said, well, do it vertically. I struggled. The diagram didn't change except you added pink coloration to the rectangles. And this is very typical of my experience with working with any LLM, is that you really have to do a kind of leadership model of prompting where you're just helping it understand what was wrong about the last thing it did and move on to the next one and guide it step by step. Eventually, down through this long course, I got to this result. But here up on this UI, notice again, you've got this preview and you've got the underlying code here that I could take and put into a product that is being used here called Mermaid to get a better preview of it. But here is all of the intermediate things that I tried to do. And at the very end, this morning, I tried to say, okay, well, make it colorful now. And it did the same thing, error syntax. And so it's a real struggle in many ways to get there, but you can see how this will improve over time. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to add infographics to things that we're developing for instructional tools. And then more importantly, interactive educational experiences that you can generate using Claude 3.5, as Brian illustrated.
And I want to give a shout out real quick, just talking about use cases, to this YouTube channel. It's called AI Foundations. What was the gentleman's name that does it? Great video, Drake. I shouldn't say kid, gentleman. The guy's name is Drake. And he did a phenomenal video. Now, this video, I have it up on the screen, but if you're just listening to us, it's called 15 Insane, all capitalized, use cases for new Claude Sonnet 3.5. He did a great job, and he did a great job of actually labeling his chapters as well, which makes it, thank you, Drake, and AI Foundations for making it very easy to jump through these. But we don't have to stop and go through every single one of these, but I'll just name a couple of the different use cases that he had. So visualize anything from animations with animations. So like if we look at this one, he did a pretty good job of like doing the sort of questions and doing, like you were just saying, Andy, or the idea of doing something from a textbook and then doing a quiz off of the back end of that. Super easy to do. We totally would use that in sales. In this particular case, he just wanted an animation talking about how a cut heals and what the cells are doing. So sort of like on the educational side. I'm just trying to do a few here. Here he took an image, a static image, and asked for it to be animated. So this was already an image. If we went backwards a little bit here, you can kind of see the image in the upper left corner that he uploaded, and then basically said, I want to animate this image. So static image to animation. And he had to go through a couple iterations. It definitely didn't work right off the bat. He had to refeed it in the errors to get it to fix it. Let me see if there's any other there's really cool ones in here. Web applications for sure he talked about. This is the one that was sort of like our first-person shooter Doom game. So the game one talked about creating 8-bit images, 3D simulation. So here's a great, I think this is also about cells or 3D cubes, say, simulating with a tractor and bomb effect. This actually reminds me very much of what we used to use in synthesis. So for people who know what synthesis is and the games we used to play, they look very similar to this. But they were all about helping children learn critical thinking skills. It wasn't about the games looking particularly high tech. They looked a lot like this, and you use your up, down, left, right. Now, these type of tools are only going to give the kids who are doing synthesis the ability to create their own games. I wouldn't be surprised if synthesis is already looking into that. Let me jump over to the system architectures. This is kind of what you just did, Andy, a little bit. SEO application. He built a tool that does an SEO keyword review for him, and that was like a 3-step process. Pretty cool there. This one I was impressed with. He built his own, or Claude built its own object detection system in real time. And so I'm going to actually play this really quick.
It labels it here. This entire thing was built with Claude. Remember, I downloaded it. Let me hold up something to my camera like a cup and see how it does. Look for the detected objects down here underneath my face. When I hold a cup, see if it gets it. Cup. It thought it was a cell phone at first, but then it ended up, no, actually it thought it was a cup, and then it ended up going to a cell phone. So this is very interesting. Let me hold up a water bottle. Bottle detected. Isn't that
okay? So in case you can't hear it or see it, because I know it's kind of low, he's just got his camera on, and then he holds up a cup, and right up underneath it says detected objects. It says cup first detected at 4:12:21 p.m. And then he held up a cell phone, or he thought it was a cell phone. Then he held up a bottle. Then he held up his laptop, and it's doing real-time object detection. And that was something that he had Claude 3.5 code. This, to me, I mean, the Doom and the 3D and all that's very cool. This was the most impressive of all the things that he did. Because I was like, oh, I didn't realize it had that kind of power. So, and you can see here, templatizing problems. Look, here's what I'd say. If you want to see all the cool things, 15 very cool use cases for how to use the how to use 3.5 and its artifacts, go check out 15 insane use cases for new Claude Sonnet 3.5. And it's by the channel AI Foundations and this gentleman named Drake. He did a fantastic job. It's certainly helped me get prepped for this show. So want to give him a big shout out and go give him some love. It looks like he's doing great, though. He's got 176,000 subscribers. So he's clearly doing something right and people like his content. So go check that out for sure. But those are cool, right? I didn't know they could do some of those.
Absolutely. One of the things that I want to say before we get too far is that you have to turn artifacts on if you have a subscription. I don't know if you have to do it for the free, if it automatically gives it to you.
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's under preview features, right? So you need to go and say it. I spent a very confusing half an hour saying, build me a game. No, build me a game. Yeah. I want to play the game with you, right? So if you're having that experience, go to your settings and turn on this feature. The other thing, so Allie K. Miller was talking about her top use case. And one of the things that's important about this is the way that she was seeing this was moving forward. She is going on vacation. She's an AI consultant, business consultant. She's going on vacation. There are 9 people, 3 couples, 3 singles, right? And she has a variety of factors looking at Airbnb. So she built a decision bot that has sliders to determine what property is the best for a variety of things. And the reason that it's so interesting is that she, I think, is correctly observing that this will be a way that businesses optimize their sales process or their marketing process in the future, so that you can now like search engine optimization, but this is like decision optimization for human plus AI, right? This is the information you need. Here you go. I don't know. Is that a JSON repository or something? Here's the information you need. We can give it to you, upload, and now you can play with your decisions. Very, very cool. I'll try to pull it up, but
yeah. I love that. I love that idea. I mean, it's like, it kind of reminds me of right now at Scaled, I'm building out essentially a maturity assessment for AI as it applies to the like, I build a lot of custom GPTs. We customize GPTs for companies and do a lot of that type of work. And so same thing you just said, Beth, is like, we want to build out a maturity assessment, but I actually want it to be something that's that any client who lands on a website could use themselves, just to do a free assessment of where they currently are and give them back some really good, helpful tools and tips about what they could potentially do next. Now, not only did I start with ChatGPT yesterday, working through that maturity assessment, I definitely had some documents and stuff that I had a vision and a direction I wanted to go to. But absolutely, why wouldn't I use ChatGPT to help me work through some of the questionings? I had it think before it gave me the answers. That way I got the reasoning before it. So I worked through that whole process. Now, when I get to a good maturity assessment, when I'm happy, when my boss is happy, right? When my CEO is happy, and we have a good set of questions and we go, yes, next thing I'm going to do is figure out how to get a sample set of answers. The next thing I'm going to do after that is probably go to Claude, go to the artifacts, and have it built out the front-facing version of that. That probably will have something like a radar graph or something that shows them where their strengths and weaknesses are visually from the maturity assessment. That is all stuff we could do today. And it's just what you just said, Beth, which is giving the end user through sales an easier time and decision-making process to figure out how we can help them with custom GPTs and where they probably need more deficiency, or where they have more deficiency and where they need more help, those kind of things.
Yeah. And right? I mean, all of us know when we're working with clients, if we can add a visual, it elevates the conversation. If you can add an interactive visual, it further elevates the conversation. If you can add a just in time, yes, we can do this. talk amongst yourselves for a minute and a half, and I will come back with my just-in-time interactive visual based on the content. Right? I mean, this is the game changer, right? Like,
Yeah,
but it is.
Yeah, let me say that there's a missing piece that I think will come about that will make all of this happen much more readily for all of us. So as I went through my experience, and I'm sure you've had these experiences too, you know, the LLM comes back, whether it's GPT-4o or Claude, and it says, here you go, it's all set, blah, 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 but it's not. It doesn't know how to check its own work yet. So that check step can be done with another LLM. So you have two different LLMs. The first one, we've talked about GANs before, like two different deep neural networks, one of them generating the output and claiming that this is good, this is complete. Look at the render that I just presented to you in the window over there for artifacts. It's got all these colors and it's done just the way you asked it to, but it's all it's showing on that other screen is error in syntax, right? So eventually that won't happen, because there'll be another one that checks and goes through its own iterative process to get to the objective. And that's what we mean by agentic. Right now, it's responding to a prompt, but eventually when each of these platforms, whether Claude 3.5, Sonnet with artifacts, or GPT-4o with all of its multimodal capabilities, when they also add this agentic capability that lets it continue to process until it gets to the right solution that it's verified, then we can almost without too much intervention, we'll get the result.
Right.
I thought you were going to say Critic GPT. Is that what you thought he was going to say, Beth? I did.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to say
like,
Critic GPT. We may have a show on that next week, by the way, but that's OpenAI just came out with something they call Critic GPT, which evaluates code. And so I thought, I get where you're going with it, Andy, but I thought like, oh, you're right. You could ask Claude to do it, or you could actually take that exact code, copy, paste into Critic GPT and say, evaluate this code. I mean, whether it was originated in Claude or originated OpenAI should make no difference. And you might be able to use, it's more manual right now. And like you said, Andy, I think eventually this will be like a GAN where it's happening at the same time. And there's multiple agents working on the problem at the same time. But anyway, that's what I thought you were going to say too. Beth,
so a similar problem that I've had with some of the custom GPTs that I've built is I build a couple of them that require, in order to preserve the work that the customer has done with the custom GPT, it outputs a text file that they then save, and then they upload it at the next session and they're back where they started, rather than having to start all over again. Yeah. But what GPT does is it says, okay, I've developed the file and there it is, here's the link. But you click the link and it says file not found. So you have to say to it, that link was inoperative, file not found, please try again. Oh, I'm sorry there's a lot of apologies that happen in those interactions.
A lot of apologies.
We got to get rid of those apologies by using an agentic pair at least, or a multiple LLM counsel to get to the result that you want.
Actually, yes, 100%. All of those are true. And somebody was just sharing, I believe yesterday, a slight hack to get around the apology, to ask, I would like you to sit, like before you do anything, take a deep breath. And when you take a deep breath, you're saying this to the AI, right? Right. When you take a deep breath, say literally take a deep breath. So you're going to take a deep breath. The first thing you're going to do is type, take a deep breath, and then answer the thing. And it gets out of the apology. Because it starts with,
that's inscrutable.
Right?
That's unexplainable. How does that make sense? But it works, I guess.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to point out in this is that Claude has really doubled down on zero shot, or Claude has really doubled down on few shot, right? So, and few shot just means you're giving examples rather than trying to craft your prompt in a way that's going to explain everything you need explained to the AI. And Claude has kind of been talking about that all along. Like, it has a way of building prompts. It has a cookbook that you can go and look at and see how it likes to build prompts. But a bunch of the examples that I played with were, these are screenshots. These are screenshots of a video that somebody else did that said you built something, Claude, and they didn't say what the prompt was. But like, this is half the prompt screen, doesn't even have the full sentences. And this is what the screenshot looked like. Do that for me. Right? So this is an amazing interactive learning from the back end, right? Like, you can have an end result and say, help me reverse engineer how we might get there.
I love that.
Yeah. So nice. Like,
did you want me to show the screen at all?
Let's just show. So it's the third one, the video at the bottom.
This guy right here.
Open. I can't see it. There you go. And
that one?
This, yeah. See, this is the vacation decision tree, right? These are the decision factors. These are the 3 properties, and depending on where you move them, it's helping to make the decision about where they should, for these 9 people, reserve the Airbnb to go on vacation. And again, the point that she was making, this is Allie K. Miller, the point that she was making is that this is an incredible self-service tool that businesses that have a sales component and are trying to help customers make the right decision for their use case, this is an amazing tool for that.
By the way, the answer to that is Kissimmee, Florida. That's close. That's if you don't know where Kissimmee is, it's just outside of Orlando. It's where a lot of people stay when they want to go to the theme parks and stuff like that, but they don't want to pay specifically Orlando prices and stuff. So that's why I live close there. So I would say that's clearly the right option and answer to that. Okay, well, we're probably going to wrap this up for today, but here's what I would like people to take away from it. First of all, what you saw me do was on a free account. Andy's, was yours on a free account as well? Right. Yes. So you can literally go and play with this today, other than just doing a sign up. As long as you have a Claude account, you can play. Now, you even saw me about, I think, 4 prompts in. I was limited on how many documents I could upload. I was limited on a couple of things, for sure, as you should be. One of the big gripes right now is what will be the right way to say this? How much you can use it. That, like, not the context, but like how many times you can use the product, both on the free and the paid side. It's the one thing I hear people say they need to increase the usability, or how much, the frequency of which you can use it, because you're going to cap out quite a bit. I don't have the paid account right at the moment, so I don't know how long it would have taken me on the same project. Clearly, I could have gone farther, and I would have had a larger context window. I think it's 200,000 tokens, so I could have done a bit more with it. But nonetheless, you can see what I was able to do on the free side, what Andy was able to do on the free side. So the big takeaway here is that, if you're inside the bubble and you've been, listening to us talk about Claude now for well over a year, the show's been on almost a year. We've been talking about Claude the whole time. And you haven't really gone and played with it. This is a great opportunity to go do that. As Beth said, you need to go turn on the artifacts inside the settings. So make sure you do that, but it is free. It is available on the free side, and play around with it. See what you can kind of build. Go check out that YouTube channel that I mentioned, because it has some great use cases that might help you jump off, or what Beth we were just showing as far as like doing something fun for how to pick the right hotel or whatever. There's all sorts of different ways that you can use this that are above and beyond what we first saw in the first couple of days was, some basic version of Street Fighter or some game, like the first couple of things we saw were like all game related. And then that's why we wanted to wait a little bit. It takes a little bit to see the true business use cases, but I think you've seen a ton of them here as well. And look, I just want to call out Justin. You've been awesome in the comments as always. I think Jen was here as well. Yep. Saw Jen in there as well. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Justin, you were saying just a couple of things here that you saw a user observed that Claude 3.5 Sonnet sometimes incorrectly reverses logical statements, turning if A then B into if B then A, which can lead to incorrect conclusions. Yeah, this kind of goes like to what Andy's saying too, is I think for basic coders, in a lot of ways, this might be more of a hindrance because they're going to spend more time fixing it. We talked about this yesterday, the teeter-totter, right? Like, where is AI actually helping you go faster and improve? For somebody like me who can't code at all, I mean, I don't have any Python experience or anything, this is still going to be infinitely faster, even if it's buggy. And it's going to be easier for me to jump off here. And if I was really so inclined, I could then take this and give it to somebody at Fiverr, let's say, and hopefully spend less money on my own because I gave them something that was halfway working. And then I'm just asking for iterations versus can you start from net zero with nothing and try to build it and what that might cost me. So I think that's a good point as well. And then he was saying, Brian, I agree. That's my one complaint about Claude, the limited number of queries. Thank you for saying queries, by the way. That's the one word I was trying to figure out, Justin, in my head and couldn't come up with it. So yes, the queries, the limited amount of queries that you get. So go play with Claude. Definitely go check out 3.5. Claude has said, and maybe this is a good place to end on. I'll just share it on my screen real quick. Look, it's right here. The future of work with Claude. This is straight off of their website. In the coming months, we will continue making Claude easier to use while expanding the types of project knowledge you can build to Claude, bring to Claude via native integrations with popular applications and tool. We're excited to see how your team works with Claude. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know of where they're going with this, which is don't worry about Zapier. Don't worry about Make. Claude, OpenAI, we believe is going to do the exact same thing with custom GPTs. We'll have direct integrations with some of your favorite tools. So you build it here, you send it over to Airtable. You build it here, you send it directly over to your webspace through wherever you're building your website, right? Maybe Wix or something like that, or WordPress. They're going to have native integrations. So as a team, very soon, you're going to be able to just build as collectively as a team. And when you want to deploy, there's probably going to be ways for you to directly deploy to various different tools. And this is the next step towards agents, like we've been saying for a while, because first it'll be to one tool, and eventually it'll be to several tools, and it'll be able to handle all of that without your input and deploy things make updates to websites directly from inside Claude, or if it was OpenAI, without you actually having to physically go into that website to make the changes. It'll update the code from there. At least that's the way I expect it based on what we saw there. Okay.
Nice.
Come hang out with us tomorrow. Tomorrow is the news, where we always talk about things that have come up in the news over the last 7 days. We just talked about Critic GPT. That'll come back up tomorrow, as well as several other things going on. Some things that Mustafa Sullivan has said that has upset some people at Microsoft. We'll talk about that. So come back for that. Thursday, we're going to have an American theme since it is the 4th of July. We will be here live, but we're going to have an American themed show where we talk about some of the AI companies, American AI companies that are flying under the radar. Maybe you haven't heard of, but are doing really, really cool things. Friday is our 2-week recap show. So we'll be talking about not only this topic, but all the other ones that we've talked about this week and last week on our Friday recap show. So as it says here in the comments, go check us out. Find out more on the dailyaishow.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter and find out more about all the other shows we've done in the past. And until tomorrow with the news, we will see you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everybody. Bye.